But then I used it up again. She's got a change. So maybe one.
Every Sunday for a full Sunday.
Every morning is such a rush. You must be
So, I ordered one particular element and getting something else.
We did try to
That is what is still there. That channel still not sorted, so I'm going to get it. I was first trying to get parts. With the parts themselves, looks so expensive. Only gold and not. Going forward. So the secretary is not here. Not also at all important. Okay, scholar will see this. Never. Pehla भी स्क्रिप्ट है. Because of for thousands of years. Once a revelation which says none of the only secret.
Thank you. First, let me give you, but I have limited. How many
They wanted bring him from
Request everybody switch off your mobiles or put them on silent, please.
Religion invokes more emotion and passion than radical thought or logical thought. You need to shift. All of you have come here this morning. What delights me more than anything else is the fact that there are at least 3 or 4 members of mixed married couples. I would like now Rohinton to start proceeding.
when it was some time ago, that with a very small but rather intense group, we had these Gatha classes at my home at Gitanjali Enclave. My other Rati was there, Jana was there, and the one person I miss the most is Niku Maneksha, who was perhaps the oldest and the keenest of the lot in trying to unravel the mysteries that are in these great texts. It is in her memory that I begin this class. She was a very fine lady. I miss her enormously. It is important before we embark on this somewhat long and arduous journey that a few fundamentals are first given to all of you. You must first know that this is an extremely ancient religion. And being ancient, its scriptures are in at least 5 languages. I don't know how many of you know that the Kushti prayer itself is strictly speaking in 3 languages. Many people say it's 2, but I think it's in 3. Because the Kemna prayer is directly taken from the Gatha, short of the last part. The Auramazda Khodai prayer is in Pahlavi, which is a completely different language, and which was the spoken language of the day during the Sasanian dynasty. I will be giving you a short primer on Persian history as well, to tell you where this dynasty fits in the timeline. And the Jasway Avangya Mazda prayer is in Avestan as opposed to Gathic Avestan. So it's a younger language, it's almost the same, but there are a couple of small differences. Interestingly enough, this prayer was put together by one of our greatest chief priests, a man called Adarbad Marasman. Now, he happened to be the chief priest of one very great Sasanian ruler called Shapur II. Shapur II is perhaps the only king in history to have been crowned when in the mother's stomach. It happened like this. His father was Hormuz II, died early. Somehow or the other, the 2 sons that he left behind were overlooked. One was called Adar Narse and the other Narse. And They were overlooked perhaps with good reason because they were considered good for nothing. So the Queen Mother and the Regency Council at that point of time, little Shakur was 3 or 4 months in his mother's stomach, decided to call upon one of the chief priests. And one of the chief priests saw the lady, saw the stomach, and predicted this would be a very great king, astrologically. Predicted first that it was a man. And the imperial diadem, that is the crown, was actually placed on the mother's stomach. And was crowned, so to speak, in utero. It was in this man's reign that this great chief priest formulated what we call our Kushti prayer. Now, before we go to the Kushti prayer and before anything else, I think it is important to give you a short background of our history, after which we go to our 2 basic prayers, Gatha and Ashet, both in the Gathic language. One other interesting thing which I must tell you at the outset. When you read this particular translation, and I would exhort all of you to start reading it and keep reading it as we go along, because it will keep giving you different meanings, different senses. It will keep inspiring as you keep reading. One interesting thing is, you must remember that as Sir William Jones, a very great English judge, came to Calcutta in the 18th century, discovered this is, Avesta is, a part of what is called the Indo-European group or family of languages. Now, being part of this group, fortunately for us, we speak many languages today which are part of this group. English, Gujarati, Hindi. Interestingly enough, one clue to discovering what at least 20% of these words mean is their modern usage in these languages. Now you will find, for example, the word Garo Deman. I don't know if most of you are familiar with it. It's the Zoroastrian concept of what we call heaven. Both can be titrated into today's languages. Garo, Gavanu, Song, Deman, domain. To give you an example. Like that, you have many little words, and in fact, you have a commonly used expression, Mutar, bis, which is used in the Gathas. Prophets always spoke with verb and always spoke with strong words because they had to ultimately revolutionize society. This is one interesting facet which you all keep in mind, because every time you read this, try and see whether a particular word fits something which is in modern usage. You will find at least, as I said, 20%. Another very interesting thing, you will find that there are 2 miracles, according to me, which have happened. One miracle is that somehow or the other, what somebody said at least 3,000 years ago has come to us more or less intact. Second, the fact that what he says is completely relevant to live by today. Both these are amazing things. And I can tell you that thanks to philology, we are able now to decipher what is stated in the Gathas, basically through Rigvedic Sanskrit, because the language happens to be identical. There are a few inflections here and there which are different, but otherwise, if you go by a Rigvedic Sanskrit dictionary and translate for yourself word by word, you will get a completely authentic meaning of the expressions used in the Avesta. So, we also happen to live in an era where scholarship has provided us with this other great insight, so that we are able perhaps to divine what Zoroaster said far better than our forebears for at least the last 2000 years. Now, having said this, a short excursus into our history. As you know, our recorded history begins really with Cyrus the Great. But before our recorded history, we are told in the Shahnameh that there were two other great dynasties which existed before the Achaemenians. First was the Peshdadanian and the second was the Kayanian. Now, it is in this Kayanian second dynasty that Kavi Vistas, who is spoken of in the Gathas, and who was the monarch who Zoroaster converted, ruled. So when you have references to Kavi Vistas and you have references to the Spitamma family to which Zoroaster belonged, this obviously belonged to an era way before 500 BC at least. We don't know exactly when, but we can say with some degree of confidence, way before. Another interesting thing, Zoroaster himself says that he is the first ever to have communed with one almighty creator God. This is another statement which is very interesting. Because according to him, he was probably brought up as an Agnihotri. He says, I'm a Sotar, which is the equivalent of a Hotar, which is a fire priest in the old Rigvedic faith. The Rigvedic faith, as most of you know, again was an ancient, I wouldn't even call it faith, it was really various statements made by persons who considered themselves in communion with forces other than our own. And the Rigveda itself is divided into 10 mandalas or books, spanning at least 3000 years. Now, the Rigvedic faith is something which believed basically in nature worship and in the worship of certain persons who became so powerful that they got deified after death. For example, you will find Mitra and Varun, who are both upholders of the ethical orders, referred to as Asuras in the Rigveda. Asura and Ahura are interchangeable, and they only mean Lord, somebody who is worthy of worship. So, Mitra and Varun are called Asuras, that is, persons who are lords, worthy of worship, because they uphold contract. Basically, they uphold the ethical order. As opposed to them, you have Indra. Now, Indra and Agni, that is fire, the same English word ignite. Always bear this in mind. When you say Agni, ignite comes to mind straight away in a living language. The maximum hymns of the Rigveda have been composed to these two. Indra, to me at least, was obviously a king who was so powerful that he got deified after death. And he had all the foibles of a modern day ruler. Drunkenness, wantonness, licentiousness, the works, violence, rapacity. And there are so many hymns devoted to him that one wonders how the ethical order would perhaps have been upheld at all, given the number of hymns to this gentleman as opposed to the great Asuras. It is from this that Zoroaster finally comes down to us and tells us that I wish now to overthrow this old order because I have seen with my mind's eye. Now again, interesting. The expression he used is just mining, just more. With my mind's eye, Almighty God, one creator God. So whereas the expression Asura or Ahura was always there in the Rigveda. Mazda was coined by him for the first time. There is no Mazda in the riddle. This is the great advance that he makes. Because he says, I am the first to receive a revelation of things that a human being cannot otherwise be exposed to from this great creator God. And again the word Mazda is split into two words. Maz and Da. Maz, again you can go to the root, the ancient root, from which the English word majestic comes. Same thing. So majestic, great, and Da is creator. So Ahura therefore means the Lord, an old expression to signify somebody worthy of worship. Who is the great creator and creator of everything that exists. Now, having given you this short introduction, let me also give you a few timelines so that when we talk of Gatha and thereafter the Kushti prayer, it will be clear to you as to which language is used when and by whom. We go back now to the dynasties. So you had, as I told you, the first Vishnadanya, with which we are not directly concerned. Kayanian, with which we are directly concerned because the monarch was converted by Zoroaster, belonged to this dynasty. Achaemenian, the third. Now the Achaemenian is the dynasty which all of you are aware of. Begins with Cyrus II, who is Cyrus the Great dynasty. Incidentally, this monarch is also referred to in 6 books of the Bible, Old Testament, and is the only person other than a Jewish prophet who is called Anointed of the Lord. And the reason he is called Anointed of the Lord in the Old Testament is that when he conquered Babylon, not only did he give every citizen the right of free worship, that is the conquered people, but he actually told the Jews, not only can you go back to your mother country, but I will also, with my funds, from my treasury, rebuild the temple that Nebuchadnezzar has raised to the ground, which was the second time. Interestingly enough, this happened only in the reign of Darius. Cyrus comes and goes, Cambyses comes and goes, his son. And then Darius, who is a distant cousin, comes in. Darius, we are told in the book of Ezra, looks for this decree and asks the Jews that if in fact there is a decree by a Persian that you must rebuild your temple with our funds. Of course, we are bound by it. It was ultimately found. And it is with funds from our treasury that second temple was built in the reign of Darius the Great, of which one of the outer walls happens to be the Wailing Wall at which Jews worship today. That wall itself is in 2 parts, if you look at it closely. The older part was constructed with our funds. The more recent part is part of Herod's great third temple, just before Christ came. So, going back to these dynasties, we have these great rulers. We have Cyrus, we have Cambyses, who was a little off his head, who overran Egypt. Then we have Darius the Great. We have his son Xerxes. And it's under Darius and Xerxes, really, that what I call the great schism takes place. Western culture and Western thought is basically Greco-Roman. Because we were defeated at the battles of Marathon, Thermopylae, Salamis, and Placia, all of which happened within 11 years, from 490 to 479 BC. Because we were so defeated, Persian culture somehow or the other was lost to the West, completely. So this period is a period of crucial importance. The West, therefore, while adopting the Greco-Roman tradition, abjured the Persian. And it is under Darius and Xerxes that these events take place. Post-Xerxes, you have Artaxerxes, his son, called Longimanus, because one hand was longer. After him, you have Xerxes II for a short while. Then you have a bastard king, Darius Nothus. Nothus means son of somebody who is illegitimate, like William the Conqueror, who has a reasonably wrong. Then you have Artaxerxes II, the man who is thoughtful, Nariman. You have the great battle of Cunaxa in 400 BC, fought with his brother Cyrus the Younger, where he defeats him. And you have Artaxerxes III, Arsaces, and then finally our last emperor, that time Darius III, who gets conquered by Alexander. And with that, a dynasty which ruled for roughly 230 years comes in. So this dynasty won over. Then for a short while you have Greeks ruling, Seleucid, under a general called Seleucus, left by Alexander. And from roughly 225 BC to around 24 AD, which is again a gigantic amount of years. How much is it? 400, 500. You have what is called the Parthian dynasty. Now, nothing much is known somehow about the Parthians, except that they were probably worshippers of Mitra, again the same Rigvedic god who Zoroaster overthrew and came back in later Zoroastrian period. Because we find at least 6 kings were called Mithridates. But the interesting emperor in the Parthian dynasty from our point of view is Volgoses. Now, Volgoses was somebody who asked the Magi, who are the Persian priests, to gather together all the scattered remnants of the Zoroastrian texts at that time. This again was roughly the Christian era when Christ was born. And as a result, we had a second redaction of what is called the 21 Nusks. Now, a Nusk is only a compilation, and each compilation deals with different subjects. Like, for example, the Damdat Nusk, which is lost to us, dealt with creation, which has now become part of a Pahlavi text called the Buddha. The only Nusk left from this period is what is today called the Vendidan, which was at that point called the Vidaiva Dat. Dat means law. Vidaiva means against, be against. Daivas who are considered demons who worship many gods. So literally it means the law which teaches you not to worship many gods. And because this Nusk has come down to us in its entirety, consisting of 19 chapters, it is treated with a great reverence by modern Parsis, and ceremonies are performed around. Although I must tell you that short of chapter 1 and chapter 19, the rest is nothing but an ancient code of laws. It doesn't have much relevance today. So going back to Emperor Volgoses, it is this man who gets back what Alexander is supposed to have destroyed, compiles 21 books, if you may put it that way, or libraries. And those 21 books continue now for another 500 or 600 years until the Arab invasion, when they are again lost to us. And then, as a result, in the 8th and 9th centuries AD, you have 2 brothers, Maradan Farooq and Zansparam, who are poets, who basically undertook the arduous task of summarizing the lost Nusks in what is called the Dinker. And there are some 18 books of the Dinker, which only give us chapter headings basically, or summaries of what was lost to us in these Nusks. So we come back now to the Parthian period, which, if you remember, is period now number 4. So we've had Vishnu, we've had Kayanian, we've had Achaemenian, which is Cyrus, and Parthian, which has had all these Mithridates emperors. and Volcosius brings all this back. Incidentally, as a matter of general interest, in 53 BC, Crassus was one of the triumvirs of the Roman Empire. And the triumvir put down the slave revolt, the Spartacus, was defeated by a Parthian army. And this defeat was very important in history because the Romans never ever crossed the Euphrates after. So the eastern border of the Euphrates always remained, which the Romans couldn't cross forward. And the immediate crossing was to the Persian Empire. So, 4 great dynasties have come and gone now. The fifth with which we are directly concerned again is the Sasanian. Now the Sasanian begins in 224 AD under an emperor called Adeshar Papakar, that is ancestor Papak. And he happens to be a Zoroastrian priest. So he brings back the Zoroastrian religion, which was in a state of desuetude at that point, in complete force. And every emperor has an archbishop, so to speak, who is recorded by history to be a man who is very important because he essentially lays down what matters of religion for the community are. In Adeshar's time, it was a man called Kartir. And as I told you, in Shapur II's time, it was a man called Adesha. Now, this dynasty again had some 30 odd rulers that ruled for 425 years, from 224 till 651 AD. And we are concerned here directly with Shapur II, because it's under him that this great chief priest was the head Mathus, so to speak, and was the man who compiled our Kushti prayer which we pray. A short background again on some of these rulers, only as a matter of interest before we are read. Adeshar Papakan ruled for about 20 years. His son Shapur I was one of the most victorious Persian kings. You see on a bas relief in Nakshe-Rustam in Persia even today, a very proud Shapur sitting on a charger with his hair waving in the wind, imperial crown on his head, and 3 Roman emperors under him, because in 260 AD, between in fact 240 and 260, he had smashed Roman army after Roman army. And the 3 emperors under him are, one is Valerian sitting in chains, who was died in his chains. A little behind him is a man called Gordian III, who again was around for about a year. And behind him is Julius Philippus, somebody called Philip the Arab, who was another Roman emperor. So you have this very proud Sasanian king sitting on a charger with these 3 Roman emperors under him. After him, and by the way with him, one more religion tried to assert itself, which is Manichaeism. And in our modern times, you must have heard of the Yazidis, this group that these radical forces are trying to exterminate. Apparently, like the Gathas, Albigensians, etc. in Europe, these Yazidis may well be the leftover of Manichaeism, because Prophet Mani was a late gentleman, believed in the synthesis of 3 faiths, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism and Christianity. And he took the polar opposites from Zoroastrianism, but then made them completely different. You had light opposing darkness. And whereas in Zoroastrianism everything is light on earth, and there is happiness on earth, everything on earth is darkness, and so on and so forth. Now it is this prophet who also was encouraged under Shapur, but under one of his successors was put to death, Nariman II. So this had a short-lived existence here, but somehow or the other managed to spread to lands other than Persia. And Saint Augustine tells us in his Confessions, very great early Christian father, Then he happened to be Manichaean till he was 20 years old, until he saw the light. Then you have a couple of emperors until you reach Shapur II. After Shapur II, again you have a number of emperors. The interesting ones are Yazdegerd I, who to the Zoroastrian orthodoxy was called the accursed, because he was somebody who was tolerant to other faiths. In fact, he married a Jewess as one of his wives. You have Yazdegerd II, who was his opposite, who had forced conversions in Armenia, as a result of which, the moment the Zoroastrian yoke was thrown off, they became Nestorian Christian again. And of course, we have the two great Kushrus. Kushru Anushiravan, the first, who was perhaps the most enlightened and greatest of the Sasanian kings. And his grandson Kushru Parvez being victorious. Why? Because the empire was at its largest extent under Kushru Parvez. He went all the way to Jerusalem in the west, came all the way to Punjab in the east, was up near the Caspian Sea and then down near modern Arabia. So it was a very, very large extent of empire which he ruled. He's supposed to have got part of the Holy Cross on which Christ was crucified as well, which later was taken back by Heraclius. And with him really our dynasty comes to an end, because after him we have some 11 emperors, sons, grandsons, daughters, ending with poor Yazdegerd III, who ultimately falls to the Arab conquest in two great battles, Qadisiyah in 636 and Nahawan in 641. Now with this short excursus, let us go straight away to the Gatha and the Ashem prayers, because according to me, the building blocks of the entire Gathas rest upon this edifice. And it is important to know and understand thoroughly what these prayers are before we start getting into anything further. We begin with the Ashem prayer first. Now the Ashem prayer is a very simple prayer. And you have to remember there are one or two key words. The key word is first Ashem itself, and another key word is Ushta. The modern day Usha, the light of dawn, has something to do with it. Now, Asha is nothing but the Ritta of the Rig Veda. Now, Ritta is again something like the English word erect. They all come from the same root. When you are erect, you are straight. The path must be straight. So when you speak of Asha, remember the English word erect. It brings it to focus the meaning very sharply. So the idea is, it tells you that to be erect at all times, that is to be truthful, in short, at all times, is good. Ashem Bahu is good. Vahishtam Asti. It's the poet's way of telling you, not only is it good, I am re-emphasizing it. It's the highest, it's the best. Now Vahisht again, the modern word would be Behest. Best in English. What is Behest? Paradise. What is best? See, every time try and focus on some modern expression so that the meaning becomes clearer and clearer to you, both to you. So, don't forget the word Asha is erect. So, Ashem Bahu, truth is good. Vahistam, Behestam, best it is. Ushta Asti, Asti is it is. Same as the English word. Asti, it is. Same thing. Ushta Asti. Now, Ushta, as I told you, is light. Usha. What is Usha? So, it is telling you that light, happiness, as opposed to misery, darkness, it is. Ushta asti. Ushta ammai. Same expression. This mental happiness, so to speak, illuminated minds. Come to him, ammai, him. Again. Yad asai. Who for truth. Asha is truth. Does the highest truth again. Vahishtai, behestai, best. Asha. So, it's a very simple and beautiful prayer. What does it tell? It only tells you that there is a direct link between going down the path of truth, as you see, living by, which alone will give you mental happiness, contentment, satisfaction. And the second part, which is really an inference from the last three words. Do it for its own sake. Don't do it because there is some reward awaiting you or because you are scared of anything. Do it because it's intrinsically correct to do. So you have a very simple and beautiful and profound prayer. There are three keywords here. Hashem, erect, truth, Usha, Ushta, happiness, and Yad Asa, for the sake of truth. With this, you come to the Yatha Vedu. Now this is in three parts. The first is a reaffirmation of the Hashem movement. You must remember that. The second stresses good deeds. The third stresses charity. Now how does it go? Yatha Ahu Vairyo. You remember? Ahu is a part of Ahura. What was Ahura? Lord. So Yatha Ahu Vairyo. Just as a lord, some big person, would be a minister, is powerful. Vairyo means a man who wields power. Somebody like Indra in the Rigveda, not Mitrava. So just as there is a lord right now on earth, equal to, let us say, a minister, powerful man, wields power. Atha Ratus. So does a Ratu. Now who's a Ratu? A Ratu is somebody who follows the path of truth. Asha the chief. So it's a reaffirmation of Asha, the Hashem Maupre. So you put the thing together, what does it mean? It means just as people are enamored by people in power, you should really be enamored by people who follow truth. They are the real McCoy, so to speak. And therefore, a Ratu. The two words here are Ahu and Ratu. Ahu is somebody who's like Indra, who wields power. A Ratu is somebody who lives by the path of truth and therefore can instruct others. A person who gets wise, we are told in the Gatha, by following this path and who can instruct others. So this is part one. A beautiful reaffirmation of the first prayer. The second part is Vangehush Dasda Manangaho. Mind. Vangehush again, like Vaishta, highest, best. Dasda is gifts. So, gifts which are mental in nature. What they are, the Gathas will tell you. Will only come to him, and the key word here is Shautanana, who does good deeds, Shautanana. Angyaush, right now in this life, must die for love of God. This is part 2. So part 2 tells you what? If you do good deeds in this life for love of your Creator, your Creator will bestow upon you gifts which are of immense nature. Leave for the next time what these gifts are. And then the last part. Kshatrem cha aurai. Now, Kshatra is nothing short of the power of Almighty God, the creative force of Almighty God. So, Kshatrem cha aurai, that is of the Lord, this great force will be utilized to help you if you in turn help anybody in need, which are the following words. Trikupyo dadat vastaren. Now, a vastaren in the old days was a herdsman. This is an old ancient agricultural community. The very word Zarathustra means golden camel. Ustra is a camel. It's a very, very old rudimentary way of life. So the herdsman was the person who was the guy who was actually working, tilling the fields, etc. Taking his sheep and goats around. If the herdsman was in a position to gives something to anybody in need, trigu, another keyword, the Lord will utilize His great power to give to that herdsman as well. So, you put together the three parts now of Gatha. The first part, reaffirmation of the Hashem prayer. There are very powerful persons on earth. Don't emulate. Emulate only a person who follows truth. Part one. Second, remember it is only by the doing of good deeds that you will be mentally happy. And third, it is only by giving to anybody in need. It's the widest. Charity doesn't consist only in the form of pecuniary benefits. Widest. When you give to persons in need, the Lord in turn will look after you and you. Now, with this prefatory or introductory lecture, therefore, I think I have covered a gigantic span. We cover a lot in history, cover a lot in terms of Avesta, and cover a lot in terms of basic prayer, etc. At this stage, I would like to pause and would like you people to participate. So please now feel free to ask whatever you want, your doubts, because it's only by this method that what is in fact sought to be imparted by me will get imparted. Please begin. Feel free to ask me. Yes. Little louder. There's no contradiction. Why? Because in the Hashem mode, when you do something for its own sake, the Lord will give you gifts which are mental in nature. It's only telling you that from your point of view, you must do it only for its own sake. It's not that you are doing it so that you get those gifts at all. Your point of view, you do it only so that you think it's right. You must first think it's right and therefore do. The consequence will be that a great power will give you something. Yes. I'm sorry.
That consequence will always be.
And your parents tell you, I'll give you this if you come first. The point is, as my father said, you have to come first for the pleasure of coming first. So this is the first time that
Nobody ever comes first for the pleasure of coming.
you do.
I can tell you from my experience. But
You get such satisfaction from doing that. And if you don't do that, the next time you see what is that. You are dissatisfied, not because you want that gift or that prize.
since this isn't a comparative religious class, I don't want to get into this. If I start getting into these things, we'll digress, enormously. No difficulty in getting into it, but yes. Answer is no. Now the reason why the answer is no is this.
What did she say?
Question was, how did Zoroastrian get his divine knowledge? Was the same way as in the Vedas. The Vedas tell us that the descending souls and the ascending souls intermingle and the knowledge was transferred. Did Zoroastrian get his divine knowledge?
No. You see, it's a very important question. The question brings into sharp focus the difference between revelation and what a human mind can attain on its own. It's very important. Zoroaster tells you very clearly that what he is telling you has been imparted to him by Bahumana. Now, Bahumana is nothing but an attribute, in Plato's words, the ideal of a good mind. And he said that this comes to him really through an outside force. So therefore, whatever he is telling you here is not what his mind is telling him. It is what an outside force is telling him. Very important, first. The difference between this outside force telling him and a human mind, however great it is, I don't think could be better brought out than by comparing a few of the beautiful hymns of the 10th mandala of the Rig Veda and the Gathas. Now, in some of these hymns, there are human speculation because they don't know, they've not been told. One speculation is that there is somebody from outside who looks after all creatures.